Ta-da! I'm here! You're here. We think, we hope, don't know, not sure. Looks like something's happening. Malcolm Tent here, talking to you L-I-V-E via the dreaded Facebook. Here, Sunday, May 24th, or whatever time it is when you're watching it, wherever you're watching it. First thing I've noticed is that I've got Nat King Cole looking at me directly over my shoulder. It's very disconcerting. I'm going to have to change the angle here ever so slightly so that maybe everybody will think that now I'm him. Nope, he's still there and he's still distracting. So let's try to change that up just an ever slight bit. Yeah, there we go. Nat King Cole's never going to upstage me, man. I'm also going to adjust the light ever so slightly so I'm not so washed out. On the book here, on the Facebook. Yeah, there we go. It's a much better, much more natural light. Reflects my own natural charisma, my own natural self. Hopefully the video feed is looking pretty good today. I can never tell because when I do the video feed and I monitor it on my camera, it looks fine. But then a lot of times when it gets posted, I'm doing the whole stroboscopic max headroom herky-jerky thing. So whatever, we're just going to trust it to be whatever it is today and cross our fingers, cross our eyes, cross our hairs, and just soldier on in a typical anti-scene corporate fashion, which is heads up, heels down, face forward. Damn straight. I'll mention too that I have actually invested in a webcam. So even if there are problems today, there theoretically won't be any more in the future because I'll be hardwired to the machine and plugged into the matrix and should be smooth as buttermilk. So yeah, man, we got all kinds of stories to tell today. It's very interesting in our respective anti-scene histories, both myself, the unimpeachable president for life, Jeff Clayton, and one-time strategist Thomas O'Keefe were all kind of sort of in the same period of anti-scene history, which is right around the mid-90s. And I'm going to pick up my narrative where I left off several weeks ago at this point, because as Jeff himself pointed out, it's very hard to do a strictly linear narrative because there are so many side stories and there are so many supporting stories, and one gets reminded of so many other things when you're telling the story. So when I left off the linear narrative, I had just released on my record label, which is called TPOS, a couple of really crucial titles in the anti-scene canon, which is the Eat More Possum album and the G.G. Allin and the Carolina Shit Kickers single, which came out in late 93 and early 94 respectively. And then I told stories for, I told detailed stories about, excuse me, getting all choked up here, about, the songwriting process that went into some of the songs I've contributed to the ANTiSEEN songbook and Gigi's last ever show and how it related to the Carolina Shit Kickers. And all these videos are, of course, archived on the ANTiSEEN page, so you can go back in time and look at them. I archive them on my personal Facebook page, Malcolm Tent, so you can find them there. And relive the history anytime you want. So it's cool. Linearism and linearity are actually kind of ancillary to the cause at hand when you get right down to it. Yeah, that sounded really good. All right, enough bullshit. Let's pick up the narrative. We're going to get to late 1993 here, in the middle of the time period I was just talking about. Just to give you a little itsy-bitsy, little teeny-weeny bit of background, it's the early 90s, alt-rock, grunge, music is really happening, the business is booming, the scene is popping, it's possible to release lots of records by lots of bands, and so that's what I'm doing via my record label, TPOS, and through my record store, Trash American Style. And we've had a long history already with anti-scene, the better part of 10 years in the early 90s. So this is where we come in. Back in the day, I used to like to release a Christmas compilation cassette every year. I would round up friends and bands and family locally usually, and have everybody record a Christmas song and put it out on a cassette. And in the year 1993, I had this idea for a cassette called Christmas Crushing Contest. And I thought, with a title like that, there's only one man who can do the job of creating cover art. And that, of course, would be Jeff Clayton. So I called Jeff Clayton and said, Jeff Clayton, I've got this Christmas cassette I'm doing. It's called Christmas Crushing Concept. Sorry, Christmas Crushing Contest. Can you come up with a concept for the Christmas Crushing Contest? Yeah, I can't believe I just said that because there's an awful lot of alliteration in that sentence. Anyway, he said yes. And I waited with bated breath by the mailbox, and in the envelope, in the mailbox one day, was some artwork. The artwork was this. Take a look at that, if you can see that clearly. Drawn by Jeff Clayton. I'm going to try to get the angle there. It's not the best angle, but you can kind of see what's going on. Drawn by Jeff Clayton. That is Abdullah the Butcher carving a hole in Santa Claus. Yes. Now that's what I call a Christmas Crushing Contest. The artwork that Jeff sent me was black and white, pen and ink drawn. I asked him if it was okay to create some colorized versions. He said, sure, go ahead. So that's one of the colorized versions. That's another colorized versions. I laid 6 of them out on one sheet of paper and did 6 different color jobs because back in those days, color printing was pretty expensive and I had to maximize my return for every sheet. So the Christmas Crushing Contest featuring cover art by Jeff Clayton. And this is still in print and still available. There's no ANTiSEEN or ANTiSEEN related music on it, but it's got that Jeff Clayton artwork, and that is some good stuff, kids. That's the way to spend Christmas right there, like that, the way you see it. So that came out December of 1993. Excuse me, and that brings us to the next calendar year, which is, of course, 1994. Woo! 1994 was a very auspicious year for yours truly because it marked the 10th anniversary of my label, TPOS. The first TPOS record ever was the 7-inch EP by Broken Talent, which of course had the song My God Can Beat Up Your God on it, and we all know what happened after that. So in 1994, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of TPOS, I wanted to do a compilation album that was going to pull out all the stops. It was just going to have everything. So I sent out the call to bands far and near, all friends of mine, all local bands, to send in tracks. And we're going to do a great big old compilation album. And the way I wanted to package it was going to reflect my love for circus posters. Specifically, mechanically printed, hand typeset circus posters. This is like pre-computer graphics, as I mentioned earlier. This is like when you actually called the company, which in this case was Triangle Poster Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they would lay out a poster with actual typeset and block print. And I love the graphics on these things. Like anytime there was a circus or a fair or wrestling matches or what have you coming to town, the promoters would hang these things up all over the place, staple them to, telephone poles and put them on bulletin boards or whatnot. And I just love the way they look, because everything's very two-dimensional. The colors are all very, very flat and very bright. The letters are all hand set. So I knew that I wanted to have the packaging reflect the circus posters that I love so much. So I called Triangle Poster, got a couple of samples, measured them out, and they were almost perfect album size. So I figured right then and there I was going to do a bagged set because everybody in the universe is on a boxed set. No one's ever done a bagged set. So I was going to do a bagged set of vinyl with all of my favorite bands, and this was going to be the packaging. So I sent out the call, and tapes started coming in, and I decided that rather than try to agonize over putting together a running order or sequencing everything, I was just going to release everything as it came in. First tape that came in was the first song to go on side 1, and so forth and so on. And here they are released. You can see on the cover in the order they came in. The first tape I got was from Cocknoose. The second tape I got was from Mad Brother Ward. The third tape I got was from Almighty ANTiSEEN. And everybody else just kind of fell into place after that. So when you put on the TPOS 100, and I should mention too that not only was it the TPOS 10th anniversary, it was my 100th release. When you put on TPOS 100, Destroy All Mediocrity, the first thing you get is the Confederacy of Scum in full effect, baby. Cocknoose, Mad Brother Ward, and ANTiSEEN. That is one hell of a trifecta with which to open up an album. So you've got my 100th release, it's my 10th anniversary release, packaged in a custom-made circus poster, and I took advantage of Triangle Posters' numerous poster designs. I just love these things. I don't know if they still make them like this anymore. I mean, most of the circus posters I see nowadays are, you know, computer printed and have computer graphics. So I'm just really glad that this happened, because you really just don't see colors like that and layouts like that and designs like that. This stuff is just absolutely, absolutely beautiful. And I figured if we're going to go whole hog and release a bagged set, we might as well do every single format we possibly could. So we did a red vinyl 12-inch. That's where the ANTiSEEN, Cocknoose, and Mad Brother Ward tracks appears on the red vinyl 12-inch. A white vinyl 10-inch. And there was originally a green vinyl 7-inch, because, but as I talked about earlier, whenever you press a record, nothing ever matches up. You never get as many records as you do jackets. You never get as many jackets as you do inserts. You never get as many inserts as you do labels. Nothing ever adds up. So I got shorted green vinyl 7-inchers, and instead, to make up the difference, I made cassettes. And just in case you're wondering what ANTiSEEN did, for this album, Jeff sent me a tape with all kinds of random stuff that I could use on this album. He sent me some Southern Hostility demos and some live cuts. And so what I ended up putting on there was a demo version of Leeches and Losers, a classic, deep catalog cut by ANTiSEEN. And for a long time, that was the only way you could get the Southern Hostility demo version of Leeches and Losers, until, of course, the Southern Hostility Demos album came out later on TKO. But it's there, it's on vinyl, that's how it happened. And between that and the Carolina Shit Kickers, that's the only thing I released by ANTiSEEN for a long time. There was something, however, in 1995 that I was at least somewhat peripherally involved in. And that was the One Live Son of a Bitch album. Yes, originally released on ANTiSEEN's fan club mail-order record label, Death Train Music. This later came out on a label from Spain entitled Scary Records on full-blown vinyl. And one might wonder, well, what did Malcolm Tent have to do with this thing? Well, I'll tell you right now. It's very peripheral, but it's very interesting. This was recorded live June 23rd, 1995 at a venue called Churchill's Hideaway in Miami, Florida. And the only reason why that was possible is because I booked the first ever rock and roll show at Churchill's Hideaway. Purely by happenstance, a good friend of mine was out bar crawling one night and found this venue in the Little Haiti section of Miami and convinced the owner to let us do punk rock shows there. And that happened in mid-1986. I moved to Connecticut in late 1986, but Churchill's kept on having shows. Until 9 years later, the almighty ANTiSEEN is able to roll into town, have one of their shows in Miami, and record One Live Son of a Bitch, and release it on CD and LP, which just goes to show you how strange the web of interconnections is. You know, if I hadn't started booking shows at Churchill's, this particular album as it is never would have come about. Who could guess? Who knows? Who knows? It was somewhere after the recording of that album. I'm going to get ahead of myself a little bit. I'm going to stop. On this particular tour, which Thomas O'Keefe was talking about just a few days ago, he talked about playing all over the country in 1995. One of the shows that ANTiSEEN played in 1995 was at CBGB on September 21st, 1995. And they had done a 3-day run that I was a part of. They played CBGB, the main room, CBGB, and then we had them play at my record store, Trash American Style, the next day, and then at a venue in New Haven the day after. As you probably could have guessed by this, I recorded the show at CBGB on both off the soundboard and using a cassette Walkman from the room. And for 25 years, I tried to sync those two recordings up in order to get the best sounding live bootleg experience of ANTiSEEN at CBGB. And I couldn't do it because the way the cassette decks run, the way any machine runs is that no two machines run at the exact same speed, ever. So if you've got two separate audio cassettes with two different signals, each one's recording at a slightly different speed, and so it is damn near impossible to get them to sync up. And I tried. God knows I tried. Always gave up in complete and utter frustration after a very short period of time. But very recently, I contacted John Bowman, ANTiSEEN alum. He was a bass player for a number of years. And we'll be talking about him some more in a minute as ANTiSEEN bass player. He's also in the War Boys. He's involved in Mystery School Records. These are all names that should be familiar to you if you know ANTiSEEN and the extended family that we're all a part of. John Bowman's done a lot of recording and mixing and mastering for ANTiSEEN. And I thought, well, maybe I should give these tapes to John Bowman to see if he can do anything with them. And using the wonders of digital technology, John Bowman was able to, in about a week, do something that I was not able to do in 25 goddamn years. And he got those two tapes to sync up. He got the soundboard recording and the audience recording, and he blended them together seamlessly. And I'm going to tell you people right now, this thing's a barn burner, and no one's ever heard this. This has never even been alluded to in the history of ANTiSEEN, but it exists now, and it kills. And I don't have any specific plans for it, although I've got ideas. I've always got ideas. I want something to happen with this, and I think something might. So I'm just letting you people know right now, right here, that it exists. And ANTiSEEN are very responsive to the needs of the people. So if the people need to hear this, the people will hear it. So make your voices heard. Just saying. Now, some water. And I, Malcolm Tent, will bring us to the proscenium of another one of those sort of crucial moments in ANTiSEEN history, at least for me anyway. Tom O'Keefe, in his storytelling, I think is right at the point where ANTiSEEN has done their U.S. tour of 1995, and he's either just getting ready to leave the band or has just left the band. And as I recall, he left the band in order to pursue his interest in management and booking and doing things with music on the other side of the stage, which he has parlayed into quite a career for himself over the years. Hats off to Thomas O'Keefe for doing that. So sometime around then, and I don't know all of the details and circumstances, but sometime around then, Jeff Clayton gave me a call. And it was the usual deal. I'm sitting behind the counter at Trash American Style, and the phone rings. I pick it up, say, Trash. The voice on the other end says, this is Jeff Clayton. I said, Jeff Clayton, what am I releasing today? He said, we're not releasing anything today. I want to talk to you. I want to know if you want to manage ANTiSEEN. And I was like, whoa, that's That's one heck of an offer to get to manage one of my favorite bands ever. Wow, that's really cool. That could be pretty damn neat. The irony is that was one of the very, very, very few times I ever had to decline an offer from Jeff Clayton. Time was not right. It was, at that time in 1995, this was right when alt-rock and grunge and all that was absolutely at its peak. I was so busy at Trash American Style, I can't even begin to imagine what it was like anymore because it's been such a long time. You know, I had 8 employees, 8 people working at the store. I was doing something like 12, 13-hour days every single day of the week. I had my hands full, and I was balancing business on the top of my head and holding it on my shoulders. I mean, it was crazy how insanely nuts and busy the record store was. So I just didn't have time. There's just no way that I could do the job any kind of justice, you know, managing ANTiSEEN, because that's a big responsibility. That's a large task. So I had to politely decline the offer, although I really wanted to do it. I really would have enjoyed sitting in the shotgun seat, you know, hypothetically, theoretically speaking, in the van as ANTiSEEN goes down the road fearlessly towards new earth to scorch and cities to plunder and, you know, vistas to conquer. But it just wasn't right at the time. The savage irony of the whole thing is that within a year, the bottom completely dropped out of the music business. Alt-rock, dead. Grunge, gone. It wasn't the cool thing to do anymore to join a band or go see a band or release records. I mean, it didn't exactly happen overnight, but within a year, everything had completely changed. So I went from having 8 employees to talking to a bankruptcy lawyer, you know. Especially by the middle of 97, I was in pretty dire financial hurts. And so I had to focus every single iota of effort that I had into keeping the record store afloat. And by extension, the touring business, no doubt, suffered, and I'm sure Jeff can talk about that at length from his perspective, but the irony is they probably wouldn't have really needed a full-time manager for much longer after I got that phone call. So it all kind of shook out naturally, as far as I can tell, and that's more or less when I lost touch with the band for a very, very long time. They played Trash American Style once in 96, and they played again in 1999. And after that one appearance where they played live in 1999, I just completely lost touch with the boys from Brutalsville. There's an entire 12-year part of the ANTiSEEN history that I have very little knowledge of. And, you know, it wasn't a heel turn. There was no beef. There were no problems. It was just one of those things. I was so focused on trying to keep my business afloat that I really couldn't do much of anything. I couldn't really release records. I put all of my own bands on hold. I didn't really go to shows unless I had a specific reason to go to shows. And just our paths just kind of drifted apart. For 12 years. I mean, think about that. Think of all the bands out there who don't even have a 12-year history. I missed a full 12 years of ANTiSEEN history. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. That ANTiSEEN's story is that massive, and that it goes for so long, and is so consistent and so nonstop, that it's possible to miss 12 years of it. And then pick up the narrative a little bit later, which is what I'm going to do right now. So, out of touch with ANTiSEEN for 12 whole years. During those 12 years, many, many, many changes. Lots of changes went down. My record store was taken away from me in the year 2007. And so after that, I became an itinerant record peddler, and I adopted the rock star lifestyle, and that I picked up my solo acoustic guitar, kind of as is depicted on this shirt, and started playing live music and honing my chops, going out there and doing really raw, crude, brutal acoustic punk rock. And that went on for a few years. And then in the year 2011, I got a call from my good friend Paulie Cranak. He's associated with Anal Cunt and Kill Slug and Larry Lifeless and a bunch of people like that. And he's from Massachusetts, and he said, dude, ANTiSEEN is playing Pittsfield, Massachusetts at this record store that's going out of business. You ought to come on up and see him. I said, you know, I should. I haven't seen the boys in an awful long time. So, yes. 2011, November 10th to be specific, ANTiSEEN play at Rebel Sound Records in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I take the trip up there to finally be reunited with the boys after 12 damn years. 12 years! And I didn't tell them I was going to arrive. I just drove up there and walked in, and, you know, the old cliche about how when you're friends with somebody, you can lose track of them forever, but then when you meet again, it's like nothing's changed. It's exactly how it was. Nothing had changed, man. Barbecue Young was running the merch. Clayton was there. Joe Young was there. I hadn't met John Bowman or Phil Keller at that point, but they were at ANTiSEEN, so boom, it was there. And it was just really, really great to see everybody again. And as usual, I was rolling tape. As usual, I recorded the set. And having reestablished contact with the boys, I sent Jeff Clayton a copy of the tape. And a little while later, out of absolutely nowhere, I got a package in the mail from Jeff Clayton. I did not know what it was, but I opened it up, and I found in it a record entitled Worldwide Live Ass Kicking. I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder why they're sending me this record. I can't imagine why they're doing that. Till I looked on the back and looked at the cover and saw the credits and saw that right there, side 1, recorded live at Rebel Sound Music in Pittsfield, Massachusetts by Malcolm Tent on the MT Field unit. Oh boy! My recording got pressed onto vinyl. What do you know? And not only just vinyl, but really good looking vinyl too. So the legacy automatically was jump-started just like that. I went to a show, I recorded it, ANTiSEEN released it. So this came out on, I don't know what the name of the label is, Green Mist Records. Don't know where they're from. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There you go. I'm pretty sure this thing's out of print, but I'm sure that, I don't know, it might still be available from ANTiSEEN.com. You might want to take a look at that and see if it is. I was also extremely surprised to see that other songs from that recording made it onto the ANTiSEEN Brody's Militia split single. The version of NC Royalty that's on the ANTiSEEN side was from the Rebel Sound show in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, as recorded by yours truly. Yeah. And apparently, everybody loved that recording so much that the whole thing had to come out. So John Bridges, a.k.a. John the Baptist, from Mystery School Records, called me up one day and said, can I release that Rebel Sound recording as a full-length album on my ANTiSEEN Live series? I said, of course you can, dude. Please, please do. So he did. Now, what's weird about this, though, is that the recording that ended up on this album is actually not my recording. It's somebody else's recording, and I don't know what happened, how the wires got crossed, but even though I'm credited on this, it's not my recording. I wish I could take credit for it, because the recording that got used on this is also really good. This is a kick-ass album. It sounds great. And I'm 99% sure that this is still available on Mystery School Records. You definitely should get it. Because even if it's not my recording, it still sounds really good. Okay, okay. So, my goodness gracious, we've reestablished contact with ANTiSEEN, and this is also a very auspicious time because the Clayton, Young, Bowman, Keller lineup is pretty active. They're playing a lot. They came up and played in Philly. They played in New York City a couple of times at this place called Hank's Saloon. Went to go see them every chance I possibly could. I'm very particular. I'm very fond of the Bowman-Keller rhythm section. And I've stated publicly, and I think everybody out there knows, that ANTiSEEN has never ever had a bad rhythm section. It's not possible. You know, it's just a matter of choosing which one your favorite is. I was just always very fond of the John Bowman, Phil Keller rhythm section. They had a real swing to what they did. When those guys sat down and played, there was a real certain groove to it. And just a certain charisma about it. So I really, really dug that lineup of the band. And recorded them a few times. And I love the recordings so much. And this is what has always driven me. It's like I record all these shows and I fall in love with some of the recordings and I want people to hear them. So I asked Clayton if it was okay to do a cassette release of some of the shows with the Bowman, Keller, Clayton, Young lineup. He said, go ahead. I don't know why you would want to, but yeah, go ahead. I think the idea being that cassettes are such a niche item that one might wonder what the point is. I just love cassettes. Cassettes, to me, are like the ultimate populist medium. Literally anybody, if you've got a cassette deck and some cassettes, can make a cassette and make some artwork for it and tell people that it's available, and all of a sudden you're legit. You've got a record label or a cassette label, and you can put yourself on the map. That's how I did it. And I've never stopped loving cassettes. And I never stopped loving the idea that I can go and record some of my very favorite bands and they will allow me to make product out of it. So I came up with this one. This is called ANTiSEEN Paying Tolls. Recorded live in 2011 and 2012 when I was a spectator at ANTiSEEN shows and a total mark and a total fanboy, and was allowed to do this. And there's Bowman. Look at that. Mr. Bowman to his students. And Phil Keller, the foot soldier of ANTiSEEN during those years. Yes, indeed he do. And of course, we got the two long-serving main men of ANTiSEEN, Clayton and Young. Yes, sirree, Bob. So you can see that my involvement with the band started up, was restarted, and kept on going. Now, y'all heard maybe last week the story of how I wrote the song Do It Now. If you didn't hear it, go back and rewatch my broadcast, because even with its stroboscopic motions, it's a pretty good broadcast. And the result of that was, of course, this record. This came out in 2018, if I recall correctly. So I've reestablished contact with the band, and now we're 7 years into my having reestablished contact with the band. 2018, this little gem of a jam comes out. Yes, it's available from me and ANTiSEEN.com. You really should get one if you don't have it already. And this kind of slowly, somehow, in some way, some mysterious way, maybe perhaps led to the next part of the story. Which, for me, is when things get really interesting. It was a little bit over 1 year ago today, just a little bit over a year, about 13 and a half months or so. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was driving around, going to thrift shops and whatever. I pulled into my driveway, and I saw a text message had come through from Jeff Clayton. It said, hey, we need a bass player for this upcoming tour with I Hate God and the Obsessed. Can you do it? I kept my composure and typed back, Y, E, S, period, send. Kept my composure, man. I kept it. I was cool, baby. I was cool. But I was also mildly freaking out because I saw that the text message had arrived 18 minutes before I had a chance to respond to it. I was like, oh, fuck. Clayton sent this thing out. It took me 18 minutes to respond. He's found someone else by now, I'm sure. Oh, man, I blew it. I totally blew it. God damn it. But a few minutes later, I got a message from Clayton saying, all right, cool. We're gonna feel things out. We're gonna weigh our options. You say you can do it. If we decide to use you, we'll let you know. And I was like, all right, cool. I at least got a chance. About an hour or two later, I get a message from Clayton saying, so, are you ready to play bass for the South Premier Boogie Band on tour with I Hate God and the Obsessed? And this time, my composure still fully intact, I said, Y, E, S, period, send. And he wrote back and said, all right, I'll send you a set list tomorrow. And I kept my composure and said, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is pretty cool, man. Because I had always had in the back of my mind this little scenario that someday, at some point, I was going to ask ANTiSEEN if I could play a show with them. I was going to ask if they would let me come down to North Carolina or wherever they wanted and sit in with them and play one show. I really, really, really wanted to do that for a long time. And now, holy guacamole, I've been offered the chance to play a tour with them. Core blimey. Wishes do come true. Dreams are fulfilled. So, he said that he would send me a set list. I believe this was still Saturday. He said the set list would come on Monday. The next day, Sunday, the set list came through with the instruction, learn. Learn these songs. So I started learning. This was 10 days before the tour was set to begin. So I had 10 days to get my sound together, learn the songs, get to Charlotte from Connecticut, practice, and then hit the road. We only had 10 days to get this whole thing together. So I just started learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And then I had a week to, realistically, I had a week to do that because I had to leave to go to North Carolina with a few days to spare to practice. I think I even had less than a week. Whatever. I had a few days to do it. So I got down to it, started learning. Drove down to North Carolina, the first of many times I would make that 13.5-hour one-way drive to Charlotte. Rehearsal was scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. I arrived at 3:58 p.m. Walked in. We plugged in. Barry counted 4. Boom! We were in. We were on, and we were off and running. Ran through the set. Made a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of adjustment, a little bit of, moving around here and there. Played the song, played the set again. Clayton said, I won't be here tomorrow, but you guys are going to practice tomorrow. And then we're going to leave on Thursday. Or Friday, or whatever the hell day it was. All right. Got together the next day. Me, Sir Barry Hannibal, and Mad Brother Ward. Went through the set twice, just the three of us. And then the next day loaded up the van, off to the first gig in Atlanta. And the rest, as they say, is hysteria. My position in the band was originally fill-in, and then it sort of progressed to utility dude to fill in the rest of the shows that the band had booked for the year 2019. And by the time we got to the end of 2019 and, you know, the year's shows were all done, the consensus amongst the band was, well, we really don't feel like auditioning anybody, so why don't you just stick around? And I said, all right, why don't I? I'm a member. I'm in the band. This is pretty cool, too. I kind of like this. So here I am, now 13 and a half months later, the bass player, press secretary, and God help me, perhaps even contributor to songs for the next set of ANTiSEEN activity. Pretty cool. I think it shows the value of just being ready when opportunity knocks, you know. The old saying about luck being when opportunity meets preparedness, I think is definitely true in this case. I just happened to be ready when the call came and have been riding the death train ever since. And I'm very, very happy to be a part of it and to have met all you people. Some of you I knew already, many of you I didn't. All of you have welcomed me into the fold, and that means a lot to me. It means an awful lot to me. And I'm really glad to be here and really glad to be of service. 2020, as we all know, has been pretty goddamn weird so far. But the death train is still firmly on the rails. ANTiSEEN is not going anywhere except forward. And to show you some evidence of that assertion, you guys will probably have a very hard time reading my ridiculous chicken scratch, but that actually says ANTiSEEN. 3 new tracks, instrumental roughs, no bass. I've been studying this at length for about 10 days now, and I've got my home studio about to be cranked up so that the ANTiSEEN 3 new tracks, instrumental roughs with no bass, will sooner than later become 3 new tracks for release on a split single with our good friends Before I Hang. So if that's not something to look forward to, there ain't nothing to look forward to. But I'm here to tell you now there's a lot to look forward to, and that's just some of it. What else might you want to look forward to in the ANTiSEEN camp? Well, Jeff Clayton, during his comprehensive discussion of Eat More Possum, took a poll of you, the people, and you, the people, spoke and said that the way Eat More Possum should be released is a box set with all the various permutations thereof. And that inspired me greatly because for quite a while now, we've been talking about releasing Eat More Possum not in a plain white box, but in a small box that will contain reel-to-reel tape. Yeah, I know, I'm trendy as fuck, man. You know how trendy I am? I start the trends. When the trend for reel-to-reel tape starts making the news and Pitchfork starts writing about the resurgence of reel-to-reel tape, you have proof right now that you heard it here first, before any motherfucker with a beard in Brooklyn ever even thought of it. Right here, right now, I'm telling you that Eat More Possum is going to come out on reel-to-reel tape, the original mix on side A, the remix on side B. It's been decided that's what's going to happen. My goal is to have, at the bare minimum, prototypes for this thing ready when ANTiSEEN do our live broadcast via Facebook on June 13th. June 13th, ANTiSEEN live, full-blown production, multi-camera, multi-microphone, professional sound, professional video, all happening on June 13th. So that's the first immediate goal for ANTiSEEN this year, is to play a live broadcast for all of you people. And the set list has been determined. It's a good one. I've been learning a bunch of new songs, and I've been relearning a bunch of old songs. Something for everybody on the June 13th broadcast. It's so gonna happen. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And on top of that, lots of other stuff going on. Check the ANTiSEEN Facebook page for at-the-minute updates. ANTiSEEN.com. It's totally happening. You can find stuff there. It's going to be good. I, of course, would be remiss in my duties if I did not mention the fact that not only is this available, the fabulous Malcolm Tent's solo album is available. It's only a solo album because I appear in every single one of the bands on it, including ANTiSEEN with the exclusive live version of Sabu, recorded on the tour I just talked about. It's also got me and They Hate Us, which is the Murder Junkies dudes, and a picture of me in the 4th grade, if you want to take a look at that. And yes, I'm happy to sign them. Yeah, you want one of my t-shirts? I got them. And that brings us completely up to date in my story with my involvement from ANTiSEEN from 1984 to the present day. And it's been one hell of a ride. One of the best rides that a guy could ever hope to take. It's entirely possible that I can come back and do more of these talks, covering more details and stories and shades and shadowing of ANTiSEEN the way I see it. If the public wants it, I can cook something up for sure. If not, no worries. Jeff Clayton is still doing his broadcasts, the Break On Through broadcast, every Tuesday at 5 p.m., and Tom O'Keefe is doing his thing, the Reach Out broadcast, Thursdays at 5 p.m. And I think there's still the potential for special guests in ANTiSEEN to come on and do broadcasts of their own. So I'm going to sign off for now. Might be back next week. Might not. I'm going to stay online for a little bit. If anybody wants to talk, to chat, ask questions or whatever, I'll be at my sit-down computer typing away so we can say hello, we can hang out. And yeah, just keep your eyes open for a lot more stuff from the almighty ANTiSEEN. And don't forget what I said earlier. There's only one way to live life, and that is heads up, heels down, face front. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.